This is our staff meeting of the Hamilton County Board of County Commissioners. Welcome to all of you. It is December 9th, 2025. We have a very full agenda because we're in budget season. And so we've got a number of budget presentations that we're going through this morning. Those will be at the top of the agenda, and then we'll roll into some of the other business that is in front of us, and then a couple of executive sessions. So, as I said, full agenda today. But without further ado, let's do introductions real quick from the dais, and then we'll move into the presentation.
Christy Rischel, Assistant Clerk.
Leslie Hervey, Clerk to the Board.
Stephanie Summerall Dumas, Commissioner.
Jeff Aludo, County Administrator.
Ann Schooley, Assistant Prosecuting Attorney.
And I'm County Commissioner Denise Driehaus. All right, first on the list, and we're going to do two things at once here. In item number one, we've got the Hamilton County Court of Common Pleas, and Tom Baradon is here to present on their behalf. And then we've got the Municipal Court, and Andy Gillen is here to present on their behalf. And so we're going to take both of you. It's going to be item 1A and 1B this morning. So Tom, you're 1A, so please come forward. We look forward to your presentation.
I appreciate that. Madam Commissioner, Commissioners, thank you for your time today. We do understand that you have a full agenda, so I will be brief and answer any questions. I know you've had a chance to look at our budget presentation so far in this matter. This year, the Court of Common Pleas, I'm presenting for the Court of Common Pleas, the court reporters within our division, as well as adult probation in the Common Pleas Court. We are seeking this year an increase. One of the main things that we've come in front of the court is an increase in jury pay. Our jurors currently receive $19 a day in jury pay. The state allows for up to $40 a day in jury pay, and this year we are requesting an increase in $30. That additional money will be used to allow our grand jurors to be able to park, receive lunch here in downtown Cincinnati, and be comfortable as they proceed through what is incredibly important for them in reviewing the cases that are brought by the county prosecutor. Prosecutor is here today, and I know they'll speak on grand jury, so I won't go into it too much, but it is important. As I stated before, the state allows for up to $40. We are not seeking that full amount. Working with our jury commissioner, we made a determination that even with our discounted parking, we have two garages that give us discounted parking within walking distance of the courthouse. Our jury members were not having enough money to even buy lunch. With this increased funding, we'll allow them to be able to purchase lunch and be able to purchase parking so they can devote their full attention to the cases that are in front of them, either in a petit jury, which is the juries that are tried in municipal and common pleas court, or in grand jury, which is done over with the prosecutor's office. We are also looking at an increase in interpreter fees. We have had an increase in interpreter cases over the past several years. Our general languages usually range between Spanish and Romance languages, but even last night I had a jury trial where I had to have 4 days of an Arabic translator. So we have contracted with JNS Translation. Their fees have been raised this year. The Supreme Court has encouraged us to beef up our translation services, not just our court, but the entire court system, so that all of the people living in Hamilton County and the state of Ohio will have access to justice when they go to court. So we're asking for that increase as well, too. We've also been doing more work with building security over at 1000 Main Street. In fact, that we were looking at installing cameras that'll be centrally localized within the courthouse and being accessed by other law enforcement. Administrator Aludo was really pushing last year a service that it would allow us to view cameras all around the county. That is becoming a little more of a hiccup, but within the courthouse, we are still working on that integration so that our outside cameras and inside cameras will work together to make sure that we are secure. As you can tell from walking past the building, we've been doing numerous security upgrades to the outside and working with our, what are quickly called riot doors, but the brass doors that go in front to make sure that the building is secure. That's not just for personal security, it's also for weather security, because we've had several issues with they've blown open. We've had issues with water and rain coming in. So we're working on all of that. We're also working, and I know the clerk will talk about this too, with our CMS net and increasing the funding there. Over the next year and a half, we will have to do several upgrades to our individual systems. Microsoft, our licenses are expiring and we're having to transfer into new licenses for the court. Also for the Court of Appeals, CMSnet covers several agencies which require these upgrades, and that funding comes through the Hamilton County Common Police Court budget. That's why we're making the request for it right now. We have already had initial conversations with the administration and with the clerk's office about funding and how this will be paid for. The amount we're putting right now, we may not need in its entirety. That's why we're working with the clerk's office and with the administration to see if we can get any of the costs lower to make it more economical for the county as a whole. For our court reporters, we this year increased salaries based on certification. There are 4 certifications that a court reporter can receive. We've given them a bonus for each one that they've done. Our salaries are still lower than what we see for the federal court reporters and for the other court reporters in surrounding counties. It's important as we move forward that we do keep a good group of court reporters present, and this will allow us to do that. The last thing I'd like to talk about today before I cede over to Mr. Gillen is our probation department. We've recently moved to the risk-based supervision model. This categorizes our probationers under high risk, medium risk, mid-level risk, and low risk. We've also moved into a field officer position where we've taken officers who will now be going around without set without set cases, but working with other probation officers to be out in the community to make sure that probationers are following the rules that have been set for them, are doing what is required of them, and will allow us to do home visits, work visits, and even street visits. These officers are the ones that we have used in the satellite offices before. They already have community contacts. We are modeling this after several other counties around the state who have had great success with this model. Because of this, we've also increased pay 5% for those who are working with the risk-based supervision. It is an increased workload. It requires more time to be spent with the probationers and more time in the community. It still puts us well in line with the other payments that are being made or salaries being paid by other counties. We're following those models, and we hope to see even a greater reduction in recidivism based on this. Recently, the probation department has teamed up with the University of Cincinnati to help track these, so we'll have more data to show that what we are doing is working. And if there are other areas that we need to improve on, we'll be able to use that data to make those improvements at that time as well, too. One thing I'd also like to mention with probation is that they have recently partnered with River City to have a probation risk-based supervision pod where that probationers who have been violated on probation will be able to be put at River City so they can continue on with the risk-based supervision practices while being detained and bringing more intense supervision during that time period. That is what we are doing this year. We have our full numbers. We are still meeting with the administration to make sure that our numbers work so that we do have a balanced budget for the county that we present, and we appreciate the time that the administration has already taken with us to get to those numbers.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and I'll open it up to questions and comments for you
Yes, ma'am.
before we turn it over to municipal court. I just have 2 questions. When you talk about jury pay and the increase there, you told us about the increase from $19 to $30 for the jurors. What is the impact to your budget?
So it'll be about a $100,000 increase in the budget. We have over the past 2.5 years, and actually I'd say even over the past 6 months, have focused on what we have basically text message outreach. Now when you sign up for jury duty, your cell phone is entered. We are able to waive jurors off much earlier than we have before so that they don't even have to come down. Before, if you came down just for jury duty, even were waived off, you were still paid for that day. If we waive you off with the SMS so you do not come down because the trial has been canceled, we do not have to pay the juror for that day. We've already seen benefits in our budget for that. We are actually going to be moving to a more online system over the next year, which is previously paid for. That is not something we're asking for an increase. Our jury commissioner has worked well with our provider to make sure that we can do that. So while there will be an increase in some of the funds, we're hoping it won't even go past what our 2022 budget was when we had none of these services. For the past several years, the jury commission has requested less. This year we are requesting a little bit more just so hopefully we can make it and retain more jurors. One of the reasons this came up is grand jury came to us and said they were having a difficult time retaining people for grand jury service. where you have to stay for 2 weeks. This is not a cure-all. Obviously, just $30 a day is not $30 an hour or $17 an hour, but it will still allow us to let those jurors actually get a lunch, park where they feel comfortable. And like I said, we do have 2 garages that allow us to have discounted parking, and this will be beneficial and hopefully help us retain more people who work and even have more diverse jury pool than we have now.
Thank you. And one last thing, and I know I've heard the judge talk about this in the past. Judge Cross is here. I should have mentioned that. There was a closure of the probation satellite sites in the community.
Yes.
And I received a number of calls in my office about that and concerns about that. I've heard the judge talk about the rationale for that. Could you just explain that quickly for the viewing public so they have an understanding of the rationale behind that move?
Yes, ma'am. So we had 4 satellite offices spread out within the community that some were open more than others. Some were simply just a place for the officers to be before they went out on patrol in the community. When we have the risk-based supervision model, we've taken all the probationers and assigned them to one of those risk status that I went over. It's not like it was previously where everyone was supervised by a probation officer, no matter what the charge. So where we had someone in Avondale, if they had just been released for a F5 minor possession charge, they would have the same probation officer as someone who possibly was out on an F3 probation charge. This now has it so that the probation officers are focused on specific levels, either high risk, medium low, or low risk. We cannot set the officers in a substation so they would be able to follow the risk-based supervision model. But what I want to stress is that we, instead of taking all the officers out of the field in the substations, we've now put them into the field. We've taken those same officers who have built relations in the community, and now they'll be out patrolling the community. So they'll work with the probation officers in high risk, medium risk, to be able to go visit those probationers at their home, at their jobs, to make sure that they're complying with the orders that the judge has been given. And we'll be able to do that around the entire county, not just in those specific neighborhoods. We've gone out to the neighborhoods that have had concern, Price Hill being the main one, where I visited the community council several times, along with Judge Cross and several people from probation, to explain to them what we are doing and why we are doing that. And while I understand their concern, because the Price Hill substation is a very good substation, the officers, all the officers did work, we did receive buy-in from those officers, knowing that being able to be out in the community and not just in one central location will help make the community safer. So that's why we've done it.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation. Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentation. I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I have a couple comments.
Okay.
The other categories under the fund budget, can you just explain the 47% and also the 23% in adult probation?
Yes, ma'am. So the 47% for the other expenditures, as we went over before, are the increase in jury pay, the interpreters, building security, and then a large amount of that is the CMS net budget.
Okay.
If you look as to our last page on our budget request, it does go over a specific breakdown. It does not actually include the amounts that we are going to need this year for the increase or the upgrade, not the upgrade, the replacement of our previous Microsoft licenses with the new Microsoft licenses. So most of that budget right now is through CMS Net. We are working with the clerk's office. We're working with the administration to make sure that we allocate where that money comes from, that it's beneficial best for the county.
Okay.
As to adult probation, the other expenditures are, as I stated before, the 5% increase for the risk-based supervision probation officers. We've also had several costs that have come up with moving to risk-based and the field service officers. They actually will be riding around in county vehicles that are labeled Hamilton County Adult Probation, so that when they go out and check, they'll be able to talk with those people there.
Okay.
We've also done a couple request of increased employment. That's not other expenditures, though. That's personnel for probation. We've requested an additional 6 officers so we can fully cover the county better and make it more safe and secure for our community and for the probationers.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Just a few comments. I'm just really impressed on your presentation because you've noticed the gaps and you're trying to figure out the least expensive way to fill those gaps. And as you talked about, you need more translators. You need to increase the jury pay. And the training is so important. 4 certifications. Everybody doesn't have 4, but you try to reach that 4.
Correct.
Continuing education is just so important. And then for me, I, as a commissioner, as we look at the budget, have to make the hard decisions for our people and what's most important. And everything that you brought up is so extremely important. And the fact that you and your staff pinpointed those areas is just, I think it's awesome. And I'm hoping we can fund all of it.
I think Judge Cross has really has really led the charge in making sure that we get those things done. And Dawn Mills, who is our budget officer, and Tiana, who's the director of adult common police probation, have been very helpful in making sure that our budget does fit the requirements.
Good. I knew she had something to do with it. So, but it's just so realistic on what needs to happen for the people.
Thank you,
That's
Commissioner.
all I am.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you for the presentation.
Ma'am.
I wanted to go to the section on jury duty. I had got called to jury duty a couple years ago, and it was kind of eye-opening. Not necessarily what the jurors receive, obviously, but there is a cost. You mentioned 2 garages that provide discount parking.
Yes, ma'am.
And let me just say they were providing, I wasn't a county commissioner then, but they provided discount parking, but they're always full. And so that is an issue
Yes.
because now you on your own for parking. So now not only are you serving jury, but now it's costing you to do that. Is there anything that you're thinking we can do or?
Our hope is with the increase that those that do have to pay the full price of parking will be able to do it without it going out of pocket. But it's something that we just need to look at. The Arms and Depke, the park house, is one of the parking garages that we do use right now. With the Jobs and Family Services moving, and it's our hope that we'll be able to increase the amount of spaces that we get there discounted. Honestly, I like that space. The elevator is not always the best, but they're working to get it better. It's easier for us to get jurors in and out of the building, just having to make 2 turns. Personally, I understand this issue. Last night I had a jury that ended at 9 o'clock, and we had several jurors that we had to escort to their parking areas because they weren't in one of those 2 designated areas, and they had to park further out. So we are looking at getting increased spaces at the park house.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just thinking that's something, Mr. Ludo, that I would like us to maybe try to help work with you on.
Of course.
The other thing is you talked about the safety of the jurors. I saw something else that was interesting. So when I came, we were lined up all outside, and we were walking in with the people that potentially we would be their juror. And I was hearing some things as people were standing behind me who were coming in for their trials. And then you got the jurors and the people at that time. I don't know if we've changed it, but I think that's just weird to have the people who are going to be the jurors walking in with the people who are accused of the crimes. Do we have has that been changed? That was
No.
like a couple years ago.
It hasn't, but it's something that we can look into. We are looking at in the next year, actually adjusting how our entrances is done to the building. And that is something that thank you for that input. That's not something that I've heard before. And we will take that into consideration because my main concern with jurors is when they come into the building, they feel secure and knowledgeable of what they need to do. And if there's anything that affects either of those, we need to address it. So we will look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, because sometimes you also can disqualify a juror. I mean, the person I heard behind me said, they didn't catch me with the dope. I said, oh, Lord, I would have to, I hope I don't get this case because I've already disqualified myself. So I'm just saying, these are real experiences. Because this was after, President Obama had jury duty, and they had this nice video, and he come in and he kissing the babies and shaking hands, and then I got called to jury duty like maybe a week later. I said, "Oh, is this what it's about?" And I heard some things. I said, "Oh Lord, I've disqualified myself before I can even get going because I'm coming in the same entrance."
Did you have a good experience once you got up into the jury commission?
What I like that you got now is a text messaging service because what happened was, one, I wasn't happy that it was going into Thanksgiving holiday, and I was at that time in charge of getting the food, and I was concerned about cooking. But I had to come and wait and wait and wait, and then they say, "Oh no, we don't need you," and then come back and wait and wait. So I see that you have corrected that with text messaging. They didn't have it then. I didn't have a good experience with parking, and I can also see people who are coming to court possibly being late because the parking. And then also they were trying to get a lot of cases done toward the end of the year, so we were all standing outside for a very long time, wrapped around the building. But it just made me think, like, how can the potential jurors walk in with the people that are going to be listening to their cases? And so maybe there's something there, I don't know, but I leave that up to you guys as the experts on that. And then, I do know that the $17 or whatever, I didn't care about that. But the $19, but the parking I know is a major issue. So hopefully we can work something out with that as well. The other thing that I wanted to highlight, it was said earlier about the probation, and I think you gave you've done an excellent job on your presentation. But I do want to, I don't know if Judge Cross wants to say anything. She took a lot of heat for this. And people think you just kind of pulled it out of the sky, but then I guess you had a study done, and this wasn't something done hastily.
It was something we had gone over 2 years. In hindsight, if I had to do it again, and we've talked about this with probation and with Judge Cross, and this is on me as the administrator only, is that I would have gone out and had those conversations earlier than later. We did it before we made any of the moves, but we announced the moves generally before we went out and talked to the different community councils. Now, we went back and did talk to the two community councils who did request us to talk about it, Price Hill and Madisonville, and sat down and talked with people in those communities to assure them. And some of them are still not happy about it, but I've got a better feeling that they understand why we're doing it now and that it's not a cost-cutting measure. It is a safety measure to make sure that the entire county benefits from those officers being in the field, not just specific communities, but we are not going to let those communities be affected by us moving out there. We will definitely be spending time in those areas where we do have some high-risk probationers, which we do in Price Hill, and making sure that they are receiving the same attention that they need to make sure that they don't reoffend and that we can get them through probation successfully so they become, productive citizens at that point.
And I would assume you're going to have, you're going to measure this, because a lot of times people think, if you don't have brick and mortar, and particularly a time right now when people feel as though there's, lots of crime going on, they don't feel as safe as they'd like to be. When you take away brick and mortar, it's kind of like the invisible fence. You see the dog barking, you don't know if there's a fence there, and it's a risk. So I guess you would have some reporting back to see if we're doing better with. And
we've already told, yes, ma'am. We've already told the community councils that we will be back over the next year as we receive data, and it's working with UC to do it. The one thing I would like to stress, though, is that we're moving. The officers previously were plainclothes. Now they are going to be in probation uniforms, and they're going to be in marked probation vehicles where they were previously in unmarked. And that's kind of going to what you were saying, is not so much a brick and mortar, but a presence, so that people see the presence in their community, that they know that the probation department, as they always have been supervising those people, but now they'll have a more visible measure of it than they have had before.
Thank you.
Yes,
Judge Cross, if you'd like to, you okay? I just always got to defer to the judge. Thank you.
Good call.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, let's shift over to municipal court. Andy Gillen is here. Good morning.
And I will be very brief. Thanks for having us. Our requested budget this year is about $600,000 beyond the administrator's recommended budget. That will be difficult to stay within due to some of the reasons that Magistrate Baradon mentioned. An increase in interpreters, increase in the fees for those interpreters. We received a notice in late October that our main provider was increasing their fees as of January 1 by 8.3%. we interpreted probably between the two courts last year close to 7,000 cases. So that is quite a bit. Additionally, I have 4 new municipal court judges coming in at the first of the year. That is obviously a costly transition, bringing in new furniture, new stationery, things like that. All of municipal court as well as common pleas court will be moving to a new email platform coming up during 2026, and we'll need to change all stationery, business cards, all of those other things. I will tell you that the court intends to, at least at last discussion, the court intends to hire a new magistrate sometime during 2026, probably around the middle of the year. The slide I have up now indicates the increase in municipal civil cases from 22 through 25, and almost a 100%, well, it's probably about a 75% increase in the last 3 years. But that expense will be coming later in the year. I think that's all I have for you.
Oh, well, that was short and sweet.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Note to everyone else, that was very short and sweet. Although I do have a question.
Yes.
Even though you were very brief. When you talked about the 4 new judges, and then you talked about a new magistrate, I just added for clarity, you mean 4 different judges? They're not new judges.
4 newly elected judges.
There we go.
Yes, yeah. We're not increasing our bench.
Okay.
It is 4 newly elected judges, but with that transition comes some additional costs.
Understood. I just do want to put it out there that I went over shopping at the courthouse for my furniture at no cost. Because you've got some furniture over there laying on its side, and we dusted that off, and it's over in my office right now. So there's a thrift. I'm a thrifter, so there's a thrifty way to do that. So let's recommend that to our new judges. And then, but when you talk about the new magistrate, you need an additional magistrate.
That is an additional position, correct?
Okay. Just for clarity's sake, that's helpful. All right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Somo-Dumas.
Just a couple questions. Thank you for your presentation. You said you helped over 7,000 people, interpreters, as you had interpreters, 7,000 people. How does that compare to last year? How many people you had to use it?
So I'm sorry, that was the 2024 numbers. I don't have the 2025 numbers yet.
So what was 2023, would you say?
Don't have that off the top of my head, but
About 20.
it has increased progressively over the last several years.
I thought you would say that, but anyway, I'm sure. And I had the same question about the judges, newly elected, but then that means others are going out.
Correct.
So, and then you said it's a $600,000 increase, and so just to let you know and everybody know, that's why we set a target budget that we are having to make some major cuts, and so that's a huge number. But I have to look at a priority, as I said earlier. What stands out the most? Is it the court system? Is it entertainment? Whatever it is, major projects. So I'll be making that decision, but that's an extremely large number.
Understood.
You have to put it forward, and I have to decide what I want to do with it.
Understood.
So thank you so much, because only you know what your needs are. So thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You were brief. You said, I need more, and I'm out the door. But no, I wanted to ask about the interpreters, because I wanted to ask about technology. Now, this may be a stretch. My understanding, and I'm not promoting this particular company, but my understanding is there's a new technology will be coming out through Apple. I think they're dropping it Super Bowl weekend, where you can, just the average person can buy, and you can be able to interpret from the AirPods. So I'm just looking at, as we're going futuristic, is there a technology fix to since we're having an increase, is there a technology fix, and have we looked into it?
So the Ohio rules of superintendents for courts will allow for some technological translations only in ancillary areas. So if somebody has to go to the probation office or somebody has to go to the clerk's office, but for actual interpretations in the courtroom, they are still requiring interpreters.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks to both of you, and thanks, Judge, for being here. Appreciate it. All right, our next presentation is from the Clerk of Courts. I know Pavan Parikh is here. Pavan, please come forward. Thank you for being here, and please introduce your team.
All right. Well, thank you all for having us. We're happy to be here. I'll let you know who's here from our team. We've got Greg Brush, our Chief Administrator over there, Susan Ayers, our Chief of Compliance, Melissa Greenlee-Reed, our CFO, and I believe Lori Jennings is somewhere back there, who's our Communications Director.
The poll is in the way.
So thank you all for allowing us to be here and present. We're happy to be here. I think you're going to hear a lot of echoes from what you've heard from our colleagues before, and probably from a lot of people that come before you. That is, we wanted more than what is being recommended. So here's our opportunity to justify why we think that our needs are necessary. Just starting with we're going to kind of divide this up into two sides. One is the increases and why those were specifically requested. And the second portion is going to be things we have done to generate efficiencies and reduce some of our costs, to show you that we're trying to tackle these issues from both sides of the ledger. So please let me know if you have any questions, but I want to talk to you initially about the increase and why we're asking for them. The first thing I want to look at is postage. The recommended budget shortfall is $124,968, and yes, 49 cents. We've gotten pretty good at projecting what we think mail is going to cost, and in this last year, for example, we got to within about 1 week's worth of exact costs as to what it would cost. The problem that we want to bring to your attention here is we have really no control over this. So we process the mail, but it is coming from all the different county agencies. There are required things that need to be sent out. Notice needs to be sent out on court cases as they're being filed. So this is not an area in which we can actually reduce costs because we don't actually control the inputs. And also we look at the increases that come from USPS. We've anticipated and have seen historic 2 increases every year in what those costs are. We just received notification that postage will go up 6% in January. So we're trying to project out exactly the amount of pieces that we think we're going to get and what the costs are going to be, but we know that those costs are going up. I want to talk briefly about our collective bargaining unit and our bailiff division and what those costs are. The bailiff division provides an invaluable support to municipal court. In 2024, they did 8,202 inmate transfers to and from court, and they provided 8,572 hours of courtroom security in 179,184 municipal court cases. That division is busier than it has ever been, and our personnel has stayed flat. We've not increased the personnel requests on there. However, we have 39 bailiffs in that division, and the increase in salary and benefits that we're asking for would leave us, and the recommended budget would leave us short, as you're seeing there. For the calendar year 2026, the bailiff division will experience 2 contractually required wage adjustments under the current collective bargaining agreement, a 3% annual step increase, and a 3% annual wage scale adjustment. Combined, these provisions result in an approximate 6% overall wage increase for the bargaining unit employees in the upcoming year. Just to give you an example, though, of how we are structured in that division, we have 39 people in that division. 3 of those are administration, so they're not really doing the day in, day out moving inmates around. 12 of those are civil. Now, our civil division, their primary responsibility is supervising eviction setouts. As we have seen historically, eviction numbers continue to rise and filings continue to rise in Hamilton County. I'll talk a little bit later about work we're doing in the help center. Our goal, we're trying to tackle this on both sides. We're trying to reduce the amount of evictions that are getting ordered for set out, but it is also our responsibility to supervise them as they do happen. Once you start accounting for the administration and civil bailiffs, we have 14 courtrooms that operate every single morning that each need 1 person in them. We also have at least 5 to 6 other of the bailiffs that are transferring inmates throughout the building over the course of those mornings and those days. At the end of the day, that's only leaving us about 3 to 4 people that could potentially be sick, be out on leave, whatever other issues are occurring on some type of workers' comp or something like that. So we are running very, very, I wouldn't say thin, but we are running right at our margins in the bailiffs division. So that is our big concern with this budget, is our ability to continue providing that function at the level that we need to be able to provide it. I want to talk also now focusing on things that we have done to try to save you all and all of us some money through some efficiencies, through streamlining some of our operational costs. And we've talked to you all before briefly on the Help Center about some of the grant work that we've been able to bring in to offset some of those costs that we've been able to use to create proof of concept to show that the programs are going to work and they can present a return on investment. So if we need to come to you at future points for GRF funding on that, we've got the evidence to show why it's necessary so you can make an informed decision. As you'll recall, we had a record center out off of Winton Road that was open for many, many years, 31,000 square feet in that record center. We closed it at the beginning of this year. That was a process that took over a year, that we transformed that warehouse into, we completely cleared it out for use for however you all saw fit. What we did was we spent months working with different agencies, relocating or disposing of records. We were housing records there from all sorts of executive agencies throughout the county, tearing down shelving, shredding 640,000 pounds of paper, and even donated some of the unused paper to crayons for computers for community use. It was then converted into the temporary shelter for animal cares, which we know that would have saved the county money in allocating those costs somewhere else to house those animals. So I just wanted to make sure that as we're looking at this, that we're looking at, not only are we asking for some extra cash, but we've taken steps to try to return a lot of these assets to you. That building itself, as we checked on the auditor's website, is valued at almost $750,000. So whether or not that we continue to use it for whatever needs the commissioners desire or to sell it, that could help offset some of these other costs that we're looking at. I want to talk about the Help Center. We've presented to you a few times on the Help Center, and I want to thank you for the request, or for the increase that we have requested for the Help Center. It is providing a very important service to our community, and we are going to be providing even greater services. Since 2017, the Help Center has provided needed legal information and limited legal advice for people who do not have an attorney. We are on track to assist 25,000 people in 2025 across municipal, common pleas, the First District Court of Appeals, and juvenile court. Along with the county funding, we have secured $206,667 in grant funding to expand the limited representation eviction program. This program, which offers same-day representation for those facing an eviction hearing without an attorney, has been an enormous success since it began as a pilot project funded by the City of Cincinnati in 2024 and early 2025. For 1 year of operations, Help Center attorneys entered appearances in over 830 cases and achieved a 92.8% positive outcome for residents when operating only 2 days of the week. Community feedback brings us to a request in 2026 to expand that limited representation program to provide services 5 days a week and expand to all county residents. Increases in county funding and grant funding provides a support staff member to eviction prevention, 1 full-time attorney fellowship, and 1 part-time attorney. Working with the University of Cincinnati College of Law to integrate third-year students into the Help Center to represent more residents also increases our reach with limited budget strain. We are also on track to launch our expansion in domestic relations court this month, and that's where we think there will also be an increase in residents served through 2026. Overall, when we look at what this is costing us and how much services we are able to provide, if you see on the slide, we've done the basic numbers come out to $30.58 is the budgetary cost per resident served for legal services. If you can find me a lawyer that will charge $30.58, should point them to us. We got a job for them. Since the late summer 2024, we've also, kind of to Commissioner Reese's point on tracking and data and information, have been working with the City of Cincinnati to track the results from that limited pilot project. The Help Center was part of a larger city effort involving funding for court programs with the Help Center and legal aid, as well as rental assistance dollars and aid to citizens through the United Way. The city coordinated with the independent research group Stout to collect data and study the impact of dollars spent in eviction prevention efforts. Data collected from Help Center program participants and Stout took a comprehensive look at parties being served, the money being invested, and the outcomes achieved. The city published the Stout report on November 17th, displaying their initial results. And we are hopeful that we can extrapolate some of these results as we look to the return on investment as we now move to being county-wide. Looking first at clients served, we note that Help Center clients in this program were 64% female, 34% male. Looking further at numbers, we notice that 78% of parties served identify as African American or Black. 45% of Help Center clients in this program had at least one child in their home. So using data collected by the Help Center Legal Aid, Stout estimated approximately 86% of tenants represented by the partners avoided a disruptive displacement for themselves and their family. That research indicates that that estimates that the city realized fiscal benefits of at least $4.5 million during the analyzed time frame of January 1, 2024 to June 6, 2025. These include the cost of social safety net response, economic benefits for the city by retaining residents in the city, additional Medicaid spending, funding for public schools, fiscal impacts of responding to crime, and beneficial spending due to employment stability. There was a preliminary return on investment of at least $2.5 invested in Cincinnati's eviction prevention ecosystem. So while those numbers looked at only city efforts, a lot of those programs are also in place by the county in social safety net programs. We would anticipate something very similar once we've expanded this and can look at what the county response would be. The Help Center has become such a success that it is gaining national attention. And in fact, we've been proud to announce that this October, we will be hosting the National Access to Justice Network National Conference in Hamilton County at the new convention center. This is a 3-day event that will bring together over 400 leaders from across the country to collaborate, learn, and drive innovation forward. This builds upon efforts of the predecessor, the Self-Represented Litigation Network. Target market for conference attendees is nonprofit legal service providers, government entities, and academic institutions. They will come across the United States, Canada, and some island nations. This provides us as Hamilton County, along with our partners at the University of Cincinnati College of Law and the City of Cincinnati, an opportunity to highlight on a national scale the work that is being done here and that we are doing with your investments in the Help Center. We talked a little bit about, through the previous presentations, on the automation fund and what that means for budgets and how we are addressing some of the technological needs at the courthouse. I want to take a few moments to explain this restricted fund and what drives the change. In October 2024, there was a change in the state statutes. Prior to that point, this fund had not been under the control of the Clerk of Court's office. It is now under control of the Clerk of Court's office. So I want to explain a little bit about the history and then go through what we're working on through this project. Over 20 years, the Ohio Revised Code has allowed funds to be collected per case filed in our courts to be used to automate the clerk's office. Prior to October 2024, a $6 filing fee was assessed and spent at the direction of the court, but not necessarily the clerk. This fund was generally utilized for CMS needs. One of the issues with the change in putting this under the clerk's office and not the courts is that we are subject to stricter scrutiny when it comes to spending and by the state auditor's office. And so that's something that is important for us as we're looking at how these dollars are being spent. We want to ensure that we are being extra careful because we do face additional scrutiny in those areas. On October 23rd, 2024, the municipal and common police courts issued an order to reallocate the $6 filing fee from the clerk automation fund to a special projects fund controlled by the court so that they would be able to retain control over those fundings. The special projects fund is a restricted fund controlled by the court. The law allows these funds to be used generally for projects the court sees fit to fund without the requirement that the funds be used for the automation specifically of the clerk's office. This redirection of funds made the revenue generated for an interim period of time effectively zero, which we alleviated by, in March, raising the fee to the maximum allowable by law, $20, to help us bring money into this fund, which allows expenses related to automating the clerk's processes. To put this into context, as we're looking at how much money are we talking about, this fee was assessed on approximately 114,000 cases. So we, doing very rough math, anticipate that the $6 per case fee would generate approximately $650,000 in revenue. The $20 per case fee would generate about 1.5 times as much. What we've done by knowing that we're going to face additional scrutiny by state auditors is really look at state auditors' reports, guidance that we've seen from the state as to how this fund can be used. We are confident that these funds can be used in an authorized manner to address some critical needs without continually having to come to you to request general revenue fund dollars. Our goal is to make sure that we are compliant with state regulations and we are leveraging these funds to make the improvements for users with as little general fund impact as possible. We're trying to keep our costs low by utilizing existing staff and partnerships. One example of that is our work this last year in 2025 to transition to Office 365 and a new email system. We did that internally with our staff and working with your staff here at the county commissioners. So big thank you to Chris Walsh on a lot of the assistance we had on that. And we were able to migrate 220 staff and 220 licenses to Office 365 for a total cost of only $73,000 because we were able to utilize the IT staff we already had on payroll. Using this strategy, we will then be able to utilize restricted fund dollars to improve services and systems available to our users. The big question in the room is always when talking about this fund, the case management system, and how can we utilize these funds to help upgrade the case management system. And we believe that it will absolutely be a permissible use of these funds. And one of our priorities is using these funds to help us get to where we need to go and updating the case management system that we've been operating on since the late 90s. Using these funds will allow us to be compliant with the Ohio Revised Code and provide better, more reliable services without the taxpayers funding that particular bill. Last thing I want to say is one of the big issues in our budget, we've come to you primarily on personnel and mail. Thank you. You have been very helpful in the past in funding a lot of our efforts to do what I think has been a priority for all of us in this room, which is retaining staff. And our retention rate is sky high now compared to what it has historically been. Unfortunately, that's expensive when we don't have people leaving at a high rate and being able to float those dollars out there for a little bit longer. It has become more expensive to keep the same level of operations running, but we believe that our customers are getting better services, the county's getting better services, and we're doing it in a way that is trying to be as focused on cost controls as we can be and trying to be innovative and reducing our costs while trying to maintain the same level of services. With that, I will take any questions.
All right, very good. Thank you. And thank you at the very end for noting that. I mean, I suspect in years past, we've heard a lot about compensation for employees, competitive set, raises. And so we have tried very hard to address those things by doing a competitive wage study, by offering this 3% increase to employees, and trying to do that also with the bargaining units to make sure that we've got the best employees here to serve the citizens. So thank you for noting that towards the end there. Now we're getting into different territory when it comes to IT and in computer systems and postage and all the other things that we're going to be hearing about. So, but a recognition of the work, the challenge that we had and the work we collectively have done with the departments and with the county administrator and the commission to start to solve for some of those issues, I think is really important to note. So thanks for mentioning it.
Thanks for your
that.
support.
And I thank you back to you also. The partnership with the data center, the record center, was really important. We had a bit of a crisis when it came to so many animals in our care, and so we worked in partnership with you to use that facility. So grateful for that. We're trying to address that long term, but that also is a very expensive equation. Yes. And so we're doing some things in the interim, and your help has been a part of the solution there. And then I wanted to focus a little bit on the health center too. So the health center is something that we've always supported since its inception, and very grateful that that is doing so well and that it's become nationally known. I mean, I applaud you and your staff for standing that up and continuing to help individuals through the help center. Let's talk just a little bit, though, about evictions. So, COVID has impacted the rate of evictions. We held things at bay for a while, but now, as you say, we're seeing an increase. Can you help us better understand what that increase looks like? Because I know there are things in place. You just mentioned it. You've got staff 5 days a week trying to keep people in their homes. Help us understand that work and what your estimation is on why the eviction rates continue to go up.
I'll answer that backwards. So I'll start with why would they continue to go up. I think what we've seen, and we've talked to our partners across the county and the city and everywhere about this, there's a couple issues. One is we just don't have enough housing. And so rents are going up and wages have not kept up with the level to which rents are being raised. Additionally, you see a lot of these venture capital-backed large institutional landlords coming into communities like ours and buying up a lot of the property. So it's not even really leaving a lot of space left for the mom and pop landlords. When we do see the mom and pop landlords sometimes they come to the help center because they also need help. But when we also see them in court and our attorneys are going to talk to them, figure out what they need, they also weren't completely sure of what options they truly had. And sometimes they just want to be made whole. So this 86% of success also involves, hey, magistrate, hey, judge, can we get just a few minutes to talk to each other and figure out, can we make each other whole? Can we get the rent paid up? Was it just a momentary blip? Did somebody lose a job? Did they have an unexpected expense with a car or healthcare or something like that? Get them paid up, and then everything is good. Or maybe they just need an extra week to be able to move out. They were going to move out. The tenant wanted to move out, but the only way the landlord really had as a mechanism to force that issue was to file the initial eviction. So us having attorneys there to be able to negotiate a lot of these settlements has been huge. And that's why that success rate is up to 86%. We ran some numbers on if we try to do a one-to-one look back into 2023 versus 2024 when this first started, it was about a 45% success rate. So we basically doubled the success rate in people being able to get, in tenants being able to get some sort of relief. And so I think there's a variety of economic factors as to why we're seeing the evictions go up. But I think what we are trying to do is deal with this on the front end as much as possible. One of the things we did notice was that as our staff was getting very good at pushing back on some of these eviction filings on the 2 days a week representation, that some landlords were moving their hearings to the other 3 days of the week. So that's, I think, a really good sign that we were being successful. And there was also the question of city versus county. Now that we are going to be at 5 days a week, city and county, you can't avoid it. So you are going to have to negotiate. Whether that negotiation is in good faith is for other people to decide. But you're going to have to be able to stand there and present your best case. We've seen some of these leases that are technically deficient. We've seen the wrong notices being served. But if a tenant didn't have any meaningful opportunity to contest that, they didn't have a lawyer that knew these laws to be able to contest that, they didn't really have a chance. So I think it's a combination of a variety of factors. I think this will be known as we move forward as a shining light as to a really strong process that is being developed here. And I'm hopeful that us working on both sides of this eviction equation, we're going to be able to do what we can to reduce them and ensure that both the landlords and the tenants are being kept whole wherever possible.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Sommer-Dumas.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. And also, as it relates to the evictions, I've got calls from a lot of people who the landlords were paid off and they still put them out. It was a way to get them out of there. But I don't believe that things happen by accident or mistake. The fact that the court system is here, because you guys are not very exciting.
I will take so much offense to that, Commissioner.
But very fundamental. And so I was thinking ahead, as these other groups are going to be coming in for other funding, that I don't want us to lose sight of what's fundamental, and that's the courts. And you brought up postage. What can we do? Put somebody on a horse and carry the mail? I mean, we have to do it. We have no control of that. And you talked about the help center. I'm just so excited about that. And the expansion, I don't know about that, if I'll be able to agree with that. It's been so helpful. But what I want to do is make sure that we realize how important the court system is and what impact you've made. So when these other more exciting things come in for funding, that we don't lose sight of what you guys have presented. And I just want to say, I think your middle name should be efficiency, because you always come trying to leverage the money that you have. I was looking at your increased efficiency, in which you lined up 3 points, but you left out one of the real important ones, the website updates that you've done to make it easier for people to get on the website and not have to come down here. So I certainly appreciate that and appreciate you.
We are planning greater updates to the website. One of the issues we have with our technical infrastructure is that it's just old. And so in order to ensure that can utilize the best technology and tools, we've got to get some of the background taken care of. And so we're going through a process right now, talking to some vendors about how can we ensure that the technical specifics are at the highest, most modern level, so we can build more opportunities there. And I think there was Commissioner Reese asked a question about technology when it comes to translation services. Also, how can we, within the rules of superintendents and any other laws and regulations, utilize artificial intelligence to try to help people, at least on the wayfinding on the front end, figure out where they need to go, because that will save us time, and time is a resource. And if it saves us time, it gives our team more time to then focus on how do I solve someone's initial problem instead of just pointing them, well, you went to the wrong office, here's where you need to go.
And I just thought it was great when you said you went to Chris, our internal IT person. I mean, a lot of people or leaders or managers would say, well, let's just go outside and get a bid on it. But you tried to be creative, and you did, and used our internal people. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese?
Thank you for the.
Sorry I called you out twice there, but I had answers to your questions. So.
You got what you say? I got the answers for. She asked the questions. I got some more questions. No,
Excellent.
no. I just want to first of all thank you for the presentation. You've been before us several times throughout the year, which is helpful because now we're not like hearing some of the stuff for the first time. We've kind of been on the journey with you, and we really appreciate that. I do have a couple things. I think one, it's great. We're going to have the big convention here, but I think it's an opportunity for, being at the State House. They tend to always say the good ideas are coming from up north, and down here we've been ahead of the game on a lot of stuff, and it's always a fight. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican. They just don't give us the credit that we deserve from the genius that comes from down in Southwest Ohio. But I think this gives us an opportunity. We were mentioning the superintendents. Maybe they do need to come down and see some of the ideas that that we're having in our courts and the clerk of courts, and maybe we can be a pilot or role model through technology, because we understand this technology, we've got to keep up with the times of what's available out there that can potentially reduce the cost. And I think our courts and clerk of courts, we've done that, and maybe we can become the way. They can come down here, learn from us, and maybe hopefully change some of these antiquated rules. Some of the rules are outdated. It's not keeping up with the times, and maybe we can be a leader there.
Specifically with that conference, we are reaching out to all the organizations, not just even in Ohio, especially in our three-state region of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, that engage in this, all the way up to the Supreme Courts, to the Access to Justice Foundation, statewide organizations, local organizations, because one of the things and one of the reasons why we believe we were able to land this convention is because so many people can get to Cincinnati so easily. There's so much, it's just easy to get here. The previous convention was in Salt Lake City 2 years ago. They had about 300 attendees. Even just at our annual Access to Justice Symposium that we host every year, just in Cincinnati, we had over 100 attendees this year. So we know we're going to get the 400, 500 people here, but our goal is to ensure that it's not just from here, and it's not even just people away from here. It is, how can we integrate this with the state government in all three states to ensure that we are working as a system together? Because if a system goes wrong in Kentucky, we feel the brunt of it here in Ohio, because people will come across the river. And same with Indiana. So this isn't just about us being the best for us. It's to ensure that we've created that buffer around us as well, so that way we can keep innovating and we can keep getting these new ideas.
Yeah. My point was, I'd like to come out of the conference with a call to action that maybe they will change some of these antiquated rules, whether it here first, obviously, and other places, and maybe utilizing the technology. Maybe while they're here, they'll come out of the conference rooms and come into the courthouses and see the help center and those kind of things.
That is part of what we are proposing.
Yeah,
as well,
so I'm
that they will
excited
come
about
see
that.
Our operations.
Yeah. So I'm excited about that. But my point is also that the superintendent, some of these rules is hindering our technology. It's not keeping up with technology. AI is running past us, and we are with older rules. So I think some of the leadership that you all have could help as they look at revisiting some of these things that have been holding us and costing us, quite frankly. So I really appreciate the innovation that's been presented today. The other thing is the health center, which I think is fantastic. And you've done a great job of keeping it going and keeping it strong and expanding. But I do want to put on the table one expansion idea that I don't know if we can do it or can't do it. But we're in the days now where everything they said couldn't be done is being done. So I want to put on the table, of course, the rental eviction is very big. It's killing people. It's hurting our plans of affordability. But also, I like to see something on the foreclosure side. People who are losing their homes. If that's already there, then that's fantastic.
That is what our common pleas attorney, their primary focus is focus on foreclosures.
Good.
The other areas that we are looking at is more being able to do more in the legal advice space on protection orders. We're looking structurally as to where we physically have the civil protection orders being filed. We're part of the domestic violence task force over at the domestic relations court, trying to streamline those processes and also being in a position where with our new domestic relations person over there in our help center there is going to be able to start advising on those issues as well. So we are, at this point, we are almost fully operational in really every court but probate right now.
Yeah.
So that is absolute foreclosure is absolutely something we are working on and looking at.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to put an emphasis on the foreclosure piece because grandma's having a hard time with high property taxes and keeping their homes. And what happens is those homes, they throw grandma out, or they throw the gentleman that I talked about that was in the newspaper that only got $40 left after he pays his property taxes. And what happens, they get this beautiful house in Madisonville. He's thrown out. And then here we come, or not us, but here comes an entity to get his house, and then we put it in a land bank where we don't pay any property taxes. So I just want to work on something with people because when we talk about gentrification, it happens in a number of ways. And one of the ways is you lose your one little piece of property that you have. And so rental is very important because I believe in choices. Some people want to rent, some people want to own. Whatever you want to do, you should be able to afford it in Hamilton County. Otherwise, people are going to move out of the county, and then we're left with people who can't afford to live, who don't have anything. So I'm concerned about loss of property, particularly legacy properties in certain neighborhoods. Evanston, they've discovered it now, so everybody, oh, we love Evanston now. But when Evanston was struggling, no help. Madisonville's been taken over. Oh, we love we done discovered Madisonville. And the people who've been there forever are getting hit. And then when we do new development, they're getting tax abatements. So I just wanted to make sure, you said you're already doing it, and I want to be able to kind of focus a little bit on that foreclosure piece.
Yes, we are working on foreclosures, and to add to your comments, Commissioner, look, home ownership is the driver of intergenerational wealth. We know that. And so when we talk about return on investments here, for the return on investment that we can make on what we're doing in eviction prevention, that number is going to be phenomenally higher when you look out for 50, 100-year timeline on foreclosure prevention, because that is how.
Since COVID, the banks are even getting tougher. From what I'm hearing from people, they're getting nastier, they're getting tougher, and they don't have no sympathy, no workability for people with their homes. Now that the COVID and the ARPA and all that, it's all gloves off, and we're not trying to work with you. And I heard that even some churches are having some of those issues. So just what you're doing is important, and I wanted to make sure the ownership side of it, you were already on the job, and it looks like you already are. So thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
you.
Thank you for coming in. Thanks to the team for being here. Appreciate it. Our next presentation is from the county prosecutor. Connie Pillich is in the house. Welcome, and please introduce your team if you would.
Oh, good morning.
Morning.
Really great to see you. I do have a couple people with me. I have my administrator, Jacob Hamblin. I have my fiscal officer, Joe Huster, and my communications director, Sharon Coolidge. And then I'm your prosecutor.
Yes, ma'am.
There we go. There we go. We got our first slide up. Technology works.
That's right, it's all good.
Sometimes, and when it does work, it's great. So thank you again for letting me be here. Oh, I'm sorry, Ann Schooley. She's your lawyer. Sorry. Please forgive me.
We already introduced Annie earlier, so we're covered. Yeah, it's
Good,
all
good. Well, look, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about what's going on in the prosecutor's office, to talk about our budgetary needs to try to continue our mission. Our top goal is to strengthen justice in our community. We are part of the justice paradigm in this community. And the only way for us to do our job is to make sure we can retain our staff, expand our capacity, improve technology, and safeguard integrity. And I'll be talking about those things this morning. We do have 3 different goals, if you will, regarding our use of funds. Above all, we have to be able to restore funding to our existing staff. The administration's recommendation would force us to cut nearly 10% of our staff. And the majority of my staff are my assistant prosecutors, all the lawyers in the office who do the work every day. And as you will see later, that would be catastrophic to cut nearly 10% of them. It'd be catastrophic for the mission of this office and public safety of our county. Included in our 3 goals, in addition to retaining our existing staff, I would like to expand our staff by 10 full-time employees, 3 for our conviction integrity unit, which I'll talk about later, 3 felony assistant prosecutors, 1 data analyst, 1 juvenile court assistant prosecutor, and 2 victim advocates. Secondly, we plan to continue to modernize our office technology, which the county has been very generous to us in helping us get there earlier this year. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, part of this staff expansion will allow us to have a conviction integrity unit that's fully functional. Because we're in this position right now with jeopardizing staff and being on the brink of being able to try to expand access to justice, we're at a crossroads in this office. We must be able to respond to crimes that are increasingly complex as well as increasing in number. We have been stymied by outdated technology, and I'm talking decades-old technology, and the ever more important need to safeguard truth and fairness with the conviction integrity unit. So let's start with the number of cases. They certainly are growing in complexity and seriousness and horror. You've read about some of these crimes in the paper. But this graph here shows a year-to-date comparison between 2024 and 2025. The blue bar is 2024, and 25 is represented by the orange. We chose those colors because I'm an FCC fan. We are seeing a larger number of cases. The only data I can easily collect, given our technology today, is the cases that are presented to the grand jury. So we are presenting a larger number of cases. We are seeing a larger number of indictments. That's the second grouping. But about the same number of cases are ignored. That's the third grouping. And when we say a case is ignored, that means the grand jury decides not to indict the charge. But we are seeing a greater number of individuals getting involved in felony activity. But each case that we present to the grand jury, regardless of whether it comes out as an indictment or not, it takes the same kind of preparation. And as these cases get more complex, they require more time and expertise, which is why it is so important for us to retain our existing staff and why we need to expand it so we can respond to, handle, and prosecute those cases. And our second goal, we're talking about the modernization of our technology, and I'm very grateful that the Commission has committed to this technology expansion. You did it long ago, and I know we're going to be doing great things. We've already begun to implement Axon Justice. This is a computer program that allows us to track evidence in a criminal case from the minute the police officer uploads it to when it gets disclosed to the defense. We can find out who looked at it, when they looked at it, if they didn't look at it. And as you know, some of the cases that people are talking about that are being revisited after 20, 30 years are instances where there are claims that the defense never received certain evidence. This will alleviate that issue. Matrix is a part of it as well. Matrix will be our new case management system. The one we use now is older than my law license of 26 years, I think it was. But one thing we need to do is to ensure transparency, and that's going to be by hiring a data analyst. People should be able to know what's going on in the prosecutor's office, and I can tell them some things, but I don't have the ability to collect and analyze data today. We want to get there. And as any organization knows, we can't measure our progress if we don't know where we're starting. And that's why we need to be able to hire a data analyst to help us track and analyze our progress. And finally, the Conviction Integrity Unit. To get a fully functioning integrity unit, this will help us advance justice, ensure fair sentencing, and strengthen public trust in our criminal justice process. A Conviction Integrity Unit means we work with community partners like the Ohio Innocence Project, the Ohio Justice and Policy Center, the Beyond Guilt program, to correct wrongful convictions, to ensure fair and just sentencing, and to promote consistency and proportionality in these criminal cases. And in addition, the Integrity Unit will allow us to improve forensic standards, access to DNA, and reduce errors and bias. And again, these are usually for cases that happened long ago. But we all know that we're not perfect, and people have the right to have their case reviewed. But I can only have a fully functioning Conviction Integrity Unit if we provide the staffing for it. So in sum, our budget request is tightly focused on improving public safety. Can't do anything if I have to cut nearly 10% of my staff. Because if we do that, we can't handle the caseload that we have now and that appears to be increasing. And to expand our staff, we'll be able to meet this increasing demand as well as the complexity of these cases. We'll be able to modernize our technology and create that fully functioning Conviction Integrity Unit that I so desire and that I think the people of Hamilton County deserve. So we're in a really unique role to protect public safety and prosecute the accused and find justice in this community. But I can only do that if we can retain our staffing and hopefully expand our staffing and create the programs that we need to. Thank you so much for your consideration. I do have Mr. Huster here, who's got all the numbers for you and should answer those questions, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. Don't know who we're going to have to call up here. I'll leave that to you. So I would just want to focus on two things related to your presentation. One is the restoration of existing staff, and then the other one is this integrity unit, the Conviction Integrity Unit. So my understanding is that the administrator recommended, and please correct me if I'm incorrect here, that the administrator recommended flat funding for the prosecutor's office. And so when you talk about restoring staff, help us understand that dynamic. And is that a matter of employees needing higher wages, and therefore you've got the same amount of money, but you can pay for fewer staff, I'm having a hard time squaring that. I understand the idea about the increase of the new employees, but help us better understand the existing staff issue.
Sure, sure. So when I came in, I was faced with a lot of vacancies. Luckily, I was informed by the people leaving by December 1st last year. So my transition team and I spent December trying to fill those holes, because we've got to put lawyers in over 40 courtrooms every day among the three buildings that we go to. 4 buildings, pardon me. So we certainly did have some vacancies for part of the year. It's my understanding that the flat level funding is due to the vacancy reduction factor that Mr. Huster can explain to you a little bit more. But right now, and we don't have any more people than we're budgeted for, as far as I can tell, and I did look through our roster and compare it to what we had previously. But with the 3% raise, being able to attract certain talent, being able to compete with a very tight legal market for lawyers, we will be short about $2 million if we keep flat funding. So we will have to lay off people. And I'll see if Joe wants to add anything.
What I would say is that the comparison starts in 2025. We were funded for all of our positions we requested, but there was a vacancy factor that was applied. And I used to work in the budget office a long time ago. I know how that works. It's totally legitimate. But that carries over into the bottom line next year. So we were held at that same level, and then we're building on that for 2026. No new positions would leave us short with salary and benefits of about $2 million. That does not touch the 10 new positions that the prosecutor is requesting. So it's just that vacancy factor kind of carries over from year to year, and that's why when we were recommending a flat budget for this year, there would be a $2 million shortfall.
So then, when you talk about the employees, then it would be helpful and I have not seen this, and maybe it's in the information somewhere, it would be helpful for us to understand previous staff levels before 2005, because to your point, Prosecutor Pilic, if there was a vacancy rate that didn't represent previous practice in years before 2025, then that would be useful information for us to help us better understand where is the sweet spot for staffing. How many staff do you need to get the job done, which is what you're referring to. You had some vacancy there that it sounds like you're talking about that as a bit of an anomaly, and our budget reflects the anomaly instead of the regular staff that you had previous to that. Is that what you're saying?
What I'm saying is, with the same amount of staff from 25 to 26, the funding would be shorted given the current recommend. Part of that falls back on the fact that in 2025, we asked for, it's about 200 FTEs, and there was money cut from that, but we're funding those for the whole year. But that also then compounds when we asked for that same amount in 2026. That shortfall from 2025, is compounded again in 2026 because we're at the same level. We have not, other than these 10 new positions, our existing staff level has stayed the same. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Okay. Just trying to better understand what we're talking about here. Okay, so I think you just said this. My question then relating to this is the $2 million that you're referring to, is that your take on what you need to maintain existing staff.
Correct.
Okay. Thank
That
you.
represents
Yeah.
the salaries and benefits. the
All right,
shortfall
got
in
it.
those areas.
Okay,
Yes.
so then I'm going to switch over. I think. So then, thank you for the information there. It's very helpful. So the conviction integrity unit, is this a new unit? Or has this existed?
Well, we have, my predecessor did create one. It wasn't very active. When I give her credit for creating one, she did it after that article came out. But for it to be a fully functioning one, we should follow the best practices that have been established nationally over the last 10 to 15 years. And that means we have to have a very seasoned former prosecutor or assistant prosecutor, but it can't be someone who prosecuted cases in Hamilton County because there are names on some of these cases. So we have to bring someone from outside. Second of all, we need an investigative position, retired police officer, probably again from a different jurisdiction, and a paralegal to help us get through all the documents. But we don't have any of that right now. I have one assistant prosecutor who started in my office 50 years ago, and he has been the front person for receiving requests for review. But he can't do it all by
Did you say
himself.
he started 50 years ago? I'm just, okay, I didn't know if that was a.
That's it.
Okay, all right.
So
all
he
right.
knows his stuff.
Okay.
But and I trust him, and he's really wonderful. But for us to be doing this the right way, we should try our best to follow the best practices.
Got it. So related then to that unit, how much, I don't know if there was a dollar amount associated with that, what would be the cost for standing that up?
Without benefits, $230,000. So I think you add another third to that, so maybe 250, 280,
Okay.
just for those three positions.
Right. Yeah, I'm just trying to start the math equation on what the request is.
And for the 10 positions that I outlined earlier, including benefits, that'd be about $930,000.
Okay. We have heard, I should say, I have heard quite a bit about the conviction integrity unit from constituents, and so I know that is a priority for some of the members of the community. So, and I'm grateful for their input, for weighing in on that unit. Okay, so, and I just want to say, and I will speak for myself, we're in the middle of budget negotiations amongst the departments, amongst the commissioners. We have very little money available to us to sort through anything outside of the administrator's recommendation. But I want to say that we are looking at your office in particular, and so I thank you for the dollar amounts. It's very helpful. Thank you. Commissioner Somero-Dumas.
Thank you for your presentation. And I had the same question about staff. And you were saying you would have to cut 10% of staff.
Close to it, yeah.
Yeah, close to it. And my concern is to at least be able to maintain what we have, not necessarily expansion at this point. As was mentioned earlier, we had a $60 million gap, and we're trying to get everybody to kind of come in and, do the best you can. I understand you presenting the new staff, which you just said would be about $930,000 for new staff. And just for me, deferral is not denial. So what I want to say is that these are great positions, but whether or not we can do it now, I'm not sure if we're able to do that. And we talk about two victim advocates, and I know Women Helping Women, they have over 100 staff, just they're covering 5 counties, whatever. The reason why I bring that up is just strategies, how we can look, and I know you've looked at that. What other resources do we have that we can use until the county can fund some of these new positions? I want us to certainly be able to maintain what we're doing and try to expand when we're able to. Let's see what else I had down. I think that was it. But once again, you said you'd be $2 million short if you did what the administrator had suggested you consider. So I really have to think about that because I want to make sure we at least are able to, once again, maintain who's already there. So thank you. And thank you for thinking outside of the box, because all of those are great ideas. Whether or not we can do it now, we have to wait till things change financially. I'm not sure.
And we are trying very hard to be aware of the realities, the fiscal realities here. When I came in, my priority was to get lawyers into the courtroom and do all those things. We were able to, we have 5 detectives on staff, mostly to help with delivering subpoenas for the grand jury and receiving communications and queries from the public who just don't understand the system. When one of them retired, we didn't hire someone there. We moved it to another part of our organization. We just lost one of our assistant prosecutors to Montgomery County. I was very, very sad, but we're working to absorb her work with existing personnel. We're trying to do things like that, and hopefully that will be helpful in the long run, but I still have to be in 40 courtrooms every day.
And you have to advocate for the courtroom and the prosecutor's office. But one thing I'd like for all of you to do from the court system, keep your ear to the ground. As more departments and agencies come in asking for money, and they ask for $1 million for, I don't know, I won't name an agency, but when someone comes in for $1 million for something that is not critical, and I'll keep saying this till we finish our budget, for $1 million, and we give them $1 million for entertainment, say, you guys need to be listening and speaking up about it, because I have to let you guys know and the residents know what's a priority for me. And the court system is extremely important to me, and I can only speak for myself. So keep your ear to the ground. Don't go away. That's because, and I know you won't, because you present it, but keep listening where we're giving the $1 million and the $2 million too. It's very important that we put our money where our mouth is and that we show what's most important in this county. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Reese.
Thank you very much, Madam Prosecutor. First of all, let me just say, I think since I've been here, you might be the first time I've had the prosecutor come themselves in a budget. I think we also need to understand what are the state laws and the rules. Unlike other departments, you are coming here, and that's great. You want to work together with us, but the prosecutor's office has another, they can get the budget outside of the county commissioners. Unlike other departments that's coming before us, and I know you don't necessarily want to use that, but I've heard that being used prior to you coming, that the prosecutor's office can go to the courts and get what they need. So I think that needs to be on the table so we can understand you're not here begging us. You're here saying let's work together because you don't have to, and I appreciate you trying to. Item number 2 is safety is a top priority. You're hearing a lot about safety. And we want to make sure that all the tools are there so that we are putting all the tools forward so that citizens feel safe and they feel that they have justice, that they have a fair system, a fair opportunity under the law. The other thing that I wanted to point out as we talk about priorities and messaging, you know, we did a stadium deal for $350 million, and we said we had to do it. I didn't go with it because I thought we could have got a better deal, but they said we had to do it because we got a contract and we got to do it, and there's a whole lot of stuff. We're going to be voting on something today. It's in the contract. But now the prosecutor's office comes, and by state law, doesn't really have to come to us, can go to the courts and get the money that you need. Now all of a sudden we say we got to think about it. We got to look into it. We're not sure. we don't know. If you can stand for the Bengals and get a deal done, I would hope we could stand with the prosecutor's office and get a deal done. I think that's the real thing that people are watching. Hey, you said you were under so much pressure that you had to get a deal done with the Bengals because you said you were under constraints, and then all of a sudden now we say we got choices. It's not about $1 million, it's about $350 million. A deal that we put a lot of time in, a lot of effort in, and came out with a deal that was just not good for the taxpayers, in my opinion. But it was done. Now we got the prosecutor. We recommend, I didn't recommend, but the administration recommends a flat budget. And I'm just trying to get down to, if these were vacancies that were not permanent vacancies, how were they not, you said you've worked with the budget, you've been a budget guy before. Did you work with our budget office, understanding that those were temporary vacancies and they're gonna have to be filled at some point? How did we get here? I guess that's what I'm trying to get. How did we get to a flat and then to a cut and now a $2 million plus a deficit?
Well, I can't answer from administration side.
Yeah. Not administration, but did you work with them? Did you get with the budget office and explain this prior to the budget being presented? That's what I'm just trying to understand.
Yes, I worked with Lisa. She's our budget analyst. I know there's been discussion with, I've had discussions with Rob, and I know that Connie and some of her staff have talked to Jeff and John about this ongoing. So there has been communication, yes, definitely.
Yeah, 'cause this is a pretty big gap when you're saying you possibly have to lay off people. I mean, that's the part I'm concerned about.
Well, if I can say that $2 million represents the cost of our existing authorized positions for a full year. That's how, it's typically requested by all the departments, and then administration comes back and applies a factor to reduce that, because everybody knows, especially when you have a large department, you're not going to have every position filled for every day of that year. There's going to be people moved on, either by choice or voluntarily. So there will be that $2 million that we have requested, that shortfall, probably in the end of the year would not be necessarily $2 million, because we would have had some vacancies and things like that.
But what's the number without a lot of cushion? Because, we want to, first of all, we want to make sure that you have what you need so that we're safe in Hamilton County. But at the same time, you're giving me two situations. One, you saying you don't really need it, you might not use it. How much money are we talking about?
That's the part that's hard to know, because it could possibly we have every position filled throughout the whole year. That could happen. But that, from our perspective, it's only responsible for us to ask for that, because if we ask for something less than that and by chance it didn't happen, then we'd be coming back to you at some point and saying, we're going to be short amount of money because we've had everybody stay. So I think it just makes more sense up front to say, this is our budget, this is the request we need to fund all our positions. At the same time, in reality, at the end of the year, we probably wouldn't, those 200 positions may not be short the $2 million. But to request the budget, we have to do that up front for the whole boatload.
Well, I just want to put on the thing I'm trying to understand. You said layoffs. What's that number to prevent layoffs? Do you have that?
Well, I think what Connie was referring to before is if you take an average salary in our office, that would equate, $2 million would equate to about 18 positions over the course of the year.
Gotcha. And then the new integrity, well, it won't be new, but functioning integrity unit, because there was an article out there and it talked about a lot of cases that came out of there that was, I guess, not done properly. And that's still being cleaned up. And there were a lot of people who did testify about the integrity unit. And you gave a number. Is that part of the $2 million, or would that be, that's not, that's in addition to the $2 million?
So, yes, and early in the presentation, I talked about 10 new positions. 3 of those would be part of the conviction integrity unit. And those three, without benefits, is $230,000. And I guess 30% would be a typical benefit number. So 23 times 3 is 69. So almost 300,000 for those three positions. Now, keep in mind that before I can do that, we're looking for our office space. We believe we found some in our building. We're going to have to write the job descriptions. We're going to have to post them. So it's going to take some months for us to hire these positions anyway. So it probably for this fiscal year of 2026, that would come in under budget. But it's my understanding I got to give you an annual number, and that's what it would cost.
I was just trying to get like a total. So we're looking at like a
About 300 for the conviction integrity.
300 plus the 2 million. So we're at about 2.4, 2.3 million. I guess I would just ask Mr. Ludo, because I don't understand that, because we've never had the gap be so kind of, that gap. What you indicated, I'll make sure I understand this right. Maybe I got it wrong. The budget process, you all talked to the different departments. You came back with a flat, according to what you said, it took into account the vacant positions we already had, but those positions, you want to fill those, but we didn't account for those. Can you maybe talk about that? Because I know last year in our budget, we put some, and I know it's a one-time fund, but I'm hoping that the economy recovers and does better next year. We do it every year. But I'm looking at, we did Sundance, and Sundance didn't happen, so we would have $2 million left over from that. We did $5 million for women's soccer. That didn't happen. And we voted for it. It seemed like that would be $7 million that we didn't use this year. That might can go to that. But I don't know all the ins and outs. Can you maybe talk about how we got to flat? I mean, we kind of got a gap here, and maybe so I could get a better understanding of that.
Yeah, certainly. So just at a very high level, the revenues that we have coming in this year or that we're projecting coming in 2026 are just a moderate amount higher very small amount higher than what we have coming in this year in 2025. So we have essentially flat resources to fund the current operations of the county. So we've been messaging to all departments from going back into early this year, back into April and May, that we were looking at a flat budget this year. So the way we accommodated that this year, as the board is aware, we had around 60 million requests higher than what our available resources were. So we did everything we could to narrow that gap down as far as we could. And then we applied a target budget to every department that was going back to, we established a base year of a few years ago, applied wage adjustments to that base year, accommodated for some things that we knew we had to pay for. And that was each department's target budget. Before wage adjustments, we held back wage adjustments. So every department's target budget actually is a little bit low, because wage adjustments then are also applied to that. So the request is that departments live within that target budget. There is going to be consistently, and we've been hearing this as a common theme and refrain throughout the budget sessions that we've had, that retention is higher in the county right now than it has been. We saw a similar dynamic in the sheriff's office, where in the past we had been able to count on a significant level of vacancy. We are not, in many cases, we're not seeing that same level of vacancy. So we're seeing more strain at the department level in terms of staying within budget and hitting target budgets. The good news is that in 2025, we're seeing most departments coming in within budget. There's a couple of exceptions to that, but we're seeing most departments coming in within budget in 2025 or for 2025. So for 2026, it's a tougher year. We've suggested flat budgets. The targets essentially account for that. Vacancy is going to be a challenge, and we're asking departments to work with us on that. with the understanding that we'll work with departments throughout the year if we're seeing departments hit major challenges. So that's a little bit about kind of how we got to where we are.
Okay, and then what happened to the $7 million? If we had gotten,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't. If we would have got it, we'd have spent $2 million.
I didn't hit
Yeah,
that.
and
note.
what
I'm
happened
sorry.
to the soccer?
So-
I love them. If they'd have got it, we'd have spent $5 million. So to me, I'm looking at we got $7 million that
Yeah.
would have been used and could we use?
Good. No, it's a great question. I'm sorry I didn't address that top of the line. So the dollars that we had counted on for some of those one-time uses, Sundance, the NWSL last year, are revenues that we're projecting over and above our interest earnings that are coming into the county that we're projecting over and above a level of interest earnings that we feel that we can count on annually for operations. We even last year with Sundance and the NWSL, we never recommended utilizing any of those interest earning overages for anything but one-time uses. If we were to start to use some of those excess interest earnings for operational purposes, and we were to get used to doing that, then when interest earnings start to come down, as we are starting to see them do now, then 2-3 years from now, maybe even 1 year from now, we're in a position where interest earnings have crashed and we've based our operations on that number. And at that point, you are looking at a massive resizing of the county workforce, et cetera. So that's something we're trying to be very careful about, only counting the interest earnings that we believe are going to come in consistently towards the operating budget and not more than that. So that's where those dollars came into play.
No, I understand what you're saying, and it would apply if we were doing 2- and 3-year budgets. But if we do a budget every single year, that gives us adjustability. It's a little different. When it's at the state, we do a 2-year budget, or the city. But every year we would get a crack at it. So everything is a one-time cost. And I just think that if we had done these two things, we would have spent $7 million. We didn't spend it. We still have it. And if we're putting it in a rainy day, I'm not saying this would happen every year. We'd have to come back next year and try to figure out something different. But everything is we vote every year. So to me, everything is a one-time fund because nothing is guaranteed. We're not voting on anything to be 5-6 years. We only can really do a 1-year budget. I get where you're saying, and I understand where you're going, but I'm just saying if safety's on the horizon, I'm not saying we use that. I'm just throwing, I don't have access to every single account that the county has. I have to go with what I'm told. I found out about this other budget last year when we came with the Sundance and the soccer. We found those dollars, but just trying to see if there's any creative ways to work together. I think the integrity unit is definitely something important. And I believe this is your first budget as the prosecutor. And I know you want to come in and be able to do the things that you said you were going to do and have the tools to do it. So just, I don't have an answer today. I just would hope we could try to work together. But we got to think creative, and it's called an all funds budget. That's what they give me. It says all funds, not some funds, all funds. And I want to look at all funds. And we get creative. We just had a presentation of the banks, and they said $800 million. And, wow, man, we grant all funds. We get real creative. We get real creative on certain things, and certain things we don't get creative on. So I do agree with the fundamentals. But, again, when they say, I want to comb every fund. And remember, it doesn't mean that we're going to be able to do it next year. We got to, each year we go through the same exercise on a yearly, we're on a year-to-year thing. We're kind of like people out there at their house. They on a month-to-month. They on a paycheck-to-paycheck. And maybe this paycheck got to go to this time. Now, I can't worry about when the next paycheck, I'm hoping something else come in before the next paycheck get here. But this is what people right now in our county and in our country, they are on case. They don't care if you're middle class, you're low income, you on a check by check, case by case, because the bills are going up, your check ain't going up. And so now you got to say, wait a minute, I can do medicine this month. And if I hold $2 more, now next month I might have to put it over here on the gas bill. Okay, now wait a minute, I got a little bit more I'm going to put over here now on the water bill. I mean, we got to be like the people. The people are on a case-by-case, check-by-check, situation by situation to survive. And I just want to make sure, the prosecutor, you got the tools so people don't say, it ain't safe, it ain't this. I want to make sure you got the tools so that we can have it to be safe. So we just, I know we're limited, but let's look at all funds. Let's push everything to the max unless the law say we can't do it. And then we got to look at it case by case. Now, how we do it this year might not be how we can do it next year, or how we did it last year might have to be different than this year. But I think looking at it on a case by case and being creative, because I'm just concerned that the gap right now is not. There's a gap. I don't know, miscommunication. I don't know. You say you a budget guy. You met with our budget people, and you've been meeting. I don't know how you got the gap, the miscommunication. But I'm hoping that we can try to work together and do something. I appreciate you looking to work with us without being adversarial, because you don't have to. And I just want to try to see if we can work it out if we can. I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the funds. Let's look at all the funds. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up question, and so does Commissioner Summer Dumas. So I want to get back to this vacancy issue. So there's a timing element to that, where you, as you said, and we hear this from all the departments, you really don't know what to budget for because you don't know how quickly you can fill the vacancies. And so there's a timing element to the funding here. And so I do wonder if there's something to that where we can think about the vacancy, how quickly those might be filled, doing something on an interim basis during the year. If you find that you have had success in filling some of these vacancies, we didn't allow for that kind of vacancy rate, so there was this delta, and we figure something out there. I don't know if that's been done before, so I would be curious to know if there's something that we can think about by way of the timing so that you don't feel constrained by filling the vacancies because you don't have the money in the budget to do it.
What I can say to that is, in years past, we have gone through the process of getting entries from the court. And we've always told Jeff and his staff that we will try to live within the appropriated budget as best we can. If we can't and we have to go a little above that, we're just trying to maintain, our doing our job, statutory jobs and stuff. And over the course of the years, we've never had an issue. At the end of the year, if we were a little short, it was always made up. Mm-hmm. So there's always been that cooperation.
Yeah.
And I don't foresee that stopping.
Okay. All right. That's helpful. Yeah, and we're trying to work in the spirit of cooperation with yourselves and everybody else that is coming in front of us. It's just a complicated equation because we don't have the revenue we need to do all that we want to do. I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, we've got flat revenue, and we had $60 million in requests that we can't fund. That's the equation in front of us. And so then it becomes a matter of priorities. The administrator has done some creative things by way of trying to bring in additional revenues. I don't know if that's going to succeed. We're having conversations about that as well. But these are just really challenging conversations. But I think you're hearing, we're all concerned about you having the resources you need to do the job that you've been tasked with doing. And in addition to that, this renewed, I should say, unit. So anyway, we're just going to take us a minute to get there, I think. Commissioner Summer Dumas.
Thank you. Just a couple comments and then a question. Because we've even been selling buildings to try to compensate for some of the money that we don't have, and so our reserve is down. We had 18%. Our reserve is now down to 15%. Excuse me. And we have to be prepared as a county to be able, anything that comes that we're not aware of, we need to be able to handle. And so, but you guys certainly are a priority. Can you answer this question for me? It was mentioned that you really don't have to come to us, that the courts can give you the money that you need. So if you could explain that for me, more clarity.
That's me.
Yeah, that's you.
Well, the law allows the prosecutor's office to seek an entry from the Court of Common Pleas to fund personnel costs. And our non-personnel costs are so minimal, it's not a big deal. But we, as I mentioned to Commissioner Driehaus, that we have done that in years past. And at the end of the day, at the end of the year, we've always been able to work it out with administration without any problems for either of us.
Okay. That helps. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming.
All right. Thank you all for coming in. Appreciate it. Thanks to the team for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right. Our last budget presentation is Alloy Development. Harry Blanton is here. I think, Harry, you also have members of your team here. Please carry on.
Thank you, Commissioners. As you said, I'm Harry Blanton with Alloy Development Company, also known as the Economic Development Office. With me today are Pat Longo, our President, Catherine Fitzgerald, Vice President, and Greg Forte, Vice President. And we are happy to answer any questions after my presentation or during the presentation. So we wanted to give you a little bit of background on how we got here. Obviously, Hamilton County Economic Development Office is staffed by Alloy Development Company, and we have served the county's economic development needs since 1983. In the past several years, EDO has increased our impact over in economic development by creating the Community Impact Program, the Office of Small Business, and the Office of Innovation. This is in addition to all of the assistance that we provide for the past 40 years. This year, the county administration has recommended a 5% reduction in EDO's current budget. So we're not talking about a flat budget, we're talking about a 5% cut. So we just want to hit some of the highlights from the past year, just to remind you of the impact that we're having on Hamilton County. The Office of Small Business assisted more than 1,500 small businesses. Many of these businesses are underserved and really did not receive a lot of assistance before this program existed. We also help with the Small Business Day and the Pitch and Empowerment event. The Community Impact Program, our more recent program, is been set up to serve underserved communities with helping them move projects forward. The three communities that we worked in this year were Cheviot, Laughlin, and Mount Healthy. In Cheviot, I'm sure you remember that we are working with them to redevelop a vacant building, the old Capels costume, into a vibrant new restaurant, bar, pickleball, and entertainment center in their business district. In Laughlin, we are assisting them with the redevelopment of a vacant bake building in their business district. And in Mount Healthy, we are helping create new housing and administering a facade improvement program. In the Office of Innovation, we are working with second stage companies to try to help them increase their revenues. On average, these companies, after they go through the program, are increasing their revenues by 42%. This allows them to create more jobs and to invest more into our communities. And finally, in our large project assistance this past year, one of the highlights was the Jividon project. We worked with the county, the city of Reading, the port, and Ready to redevelop a vacant brownfield site that will be a $130 million investment and create 300 new jobs. So our budget request this past year, we understood this was going to be a tough budget year. So we did not ask for any new staff. We did not ask for any new programming. We simply asked for a cost of living increase and a merit increase of 3% and 1%. Our expenses are going up. This past year, one example is that our healthcare costs have gone up 40%. There are other costs that we're incurring because of inflation. And so that's why we asked for a cost of living increase, understanding it's a tough budget. So this budget recommendation from the county will not only not provide a cost of living increase, but it will give us a 5% cut to our current budget. One thing that we wanted to point out is that the Economic Development Office is not just a cost to the county, but we also generate revenue. We estimate that this new project in Cheviot with the old Capels building, Central Station, will generate approximately $50,000 in sales tax and property tax for the county annually. So just this one project would cover the cost of living increase that we were requesting. So there are many other businesses and projects that we have assisted beyond this one. but it was just an example of how we do generate revenue for the county. So in the spirit of collaboration and understanding that this is a tough budget year, we have decided to forego our cost of living increase. We are only asking that the county not cut us and that we maintain the funding that we currently have. So obviously it's the decision of the county to decide where funding goes and where it doesn't go, but we do want to propose a possible solution that would not cost the county any more funding. As you know, Alloy administers the Commercial Capital Division program, the 504 Down Payment Assistance Program to help small businesses buy buildings. While it was believed that this new program would encourage businesses who currently rent to buy their buildings, only 4 companies have taken advantage of this over the past 2 years. So that's only 2 companies per year taking advantage of that program. We believe that this money could be used better in other areas like the Community Impact Program and the Office of Small Business. So we're suggesting that $79,000 of the remaining $150,000 that's in that fund be used to help the Community Impact Program and the Office of Small Business. We think that many more companies will be assisted by shifting that funding. We want to thank you, Commissioners and Administration, for your support. We are passionate about helping our businesses and our communities. We ask that you reconsider this recommended cut and continue the positive momentum of the past year. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate your perspective on this. You, as you know, are in very good company here with Ready, the Port, Alloy, all taking cuts. The Community Revitalization Grant has taken a cut. The Impact Grant has taken, everything has taken a cut by way of economic development in this budget. And I share your frustration there because these are really important programs that we have funded in the past for a reason, because they generate revenue and they're really great for the community. You know, all jurisdictions benefit from the work that you are doing, and I'm very grateful for that. I want to hone in on, you are the first person, I think, that has brought a possible solution to us, and I'm very grateful for that. Talk me through this. So I'm somewhat familiar with this program, but not familiar enough. So the money for the down payment assistance program is coming from?
That was county funding that you provided to us. I believe the original amount was $250,000. And I think there was an additional $100,000 this year. So we've helped 4 businesses. I think you're allowed to go up to $50,000 maximum per down payment assistance. And so basically it's a 50-50 split. The company has to come up with $50,000, we come up with $50,000. We've marketed this broadly. We've worked with a lot of companies. We've met with a lot of companies, but it's only been 4 companies over the past 2 years that have taken advantage of it. So we think that that funding could be used and have a bigger impact in some of our other programs, like the Community Impact Program and the Office of Small Business.
Can you help me with these numbers then? So you're saying that there's $150,000 remaining in that fund. Remind me, I know you guys took a cut. Remind me how much it was.
It would be $79,000. That's the $79,000 money.
No. The cut from the administrator's recommendation to Alloy.
Is that
79?
That's $79,000.
Thank
yeah.
you very much. Okay. All right. Well, that's very useful information. I appreciate that. I hope that there are others watching that say, "Oh, wait a minute. Is there a way to rethink our own budgets by way of the county funding and see if we can manage that differently?" So I really do appreciate the suggestion. Commissioner Summer-Dumas.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. There's no doubt in my mind the great work that you guys do and ladies. Small businesses, some exist now because of the hard work that you guys have done. So, and ladies. So I have no doubt about that. And I also appreciate the possible solutions. I think as a county, we've shown our interest and effort as it relates to small businesses through, 6 rounds of, I won't say 6, maybe 4 rounds of funding through the ARPA and all of that. And so the Pitch and Empower, the Small Business Day. And so we've actually showed that we care about small businesses. And no, I'm going to keep saying that I care about small businesses and that they are extremely important to me. The 3% cost of living wage increase, how much money are we talking about? How much would that be? You were saying
It's
you were not.
approximately $46,000, but we're not even asking for that.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because you guys work so hard, not that other people don't. And I would think that you're deserving of a cost of living increase. And how are we able to do that? And you've looked at solutions, but so it would be 46,000.
Correct.
Is that part of the 79?
That is not.
That's
so the
the
46,000 would be to give us a cost of living increase
Right.
above our current budget.
Gotcha.
$79,000 being cut from the existing
On the
budget.
loan program. So, okay, I think that's all that I have. Thank you, all of you, for what you do and the impact that you've had on small businesses. So,
Thank you. Commissioner Reese?
Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation. The 504 loan program, I know a lot about it because I spent 3 years trying to get it approved from the prosecutor's office. And the goal was, I heard from a lot of small businesses, we got everybody renting. And if they go up on the rent, just like downtown, they let everybody come in, these small businesses. They go up on the rent tomorrow, half the ecosystem, particularly minority business, will be out the door. We're seeing it happen over in Avondale. People saying they're in bad leases. You can even talk to Mortar about it. They're in bad leases everywhere. They're getting these young people who want to open their own business. They come in with these deals. They want a percentage of their business. They don't own the building. And we've got less ownership of minority businesses than we did when we didn't have that much access to education. So the goal was to come in and say, how can we help move out of renting to owning? And we know that's difficult. And if we're saying we give up to 50,000 and you got 4 people now owning a building, that's a lot of money. We're just, oh, it's only 4. I mean, how much was the building? Put all of the value on how much did it cost for them to buy the building? How much money did we put up? If it's up to 50, I'm not saying they all got 50, but if you did 4 and 50, that's 200,000. Originally, we gave 250,000. We held it because we had to wait on the prosecutor's office to approve it. So it took us a couple years to get the paperwork, and we kept it and just rolled it over. Then last year we cut it down to 100,000, I believe. So I wouldn't say that that it didn't work. The rest of these things are nice, but they programmatic. It'll be over with. These buildings that these people have, they'll have for hopefully years, and they pay property taxes and they have ownership, and now they can get equity on their businesses. So I wouldn't be so quick to just walk away. It's only like 79,000, but that's where I have a difficulty, and I would have loved for y'all to have talked to me prior to this because we spent 3 years working through this, and I have to give credit to Mr. Ludo. We worked through it, and my colleagues, we supported it, but it's to help people own the buildings. And we had a lot of complaints from people. Now, the 504 loan program is difficult. We tied it to the 504 loan program, but part of the problem is because we tied it to the 504 loan program, which requires that you as a business own lots of percentage. I mean, Black-owned apparel that everybody, they're doing deals all over the place, doing stuff. They want to own that building downtown. And they couldn't get this because the 504 program said that they would have to occupy 80 or 90% of the building. And they want to have renters upstairs that get income, and they have downstairs. So they could not get it. So I don't know. I just, $79,000 left. I don't know. I think we're bailing out too quick. We kept cutting the money down, but to have 4 people that own it, I think it's great. You've done a great job. But 4 people owning a building, I think that's a pretty significant situation, particularly in this particular economy.
And Pat Longo, we'd still like to keep some money in the program. We've touched 4, and it's been about 18 months, 24 months of total usage of this program. And I know when we brought the idea, and you brought the idea, and we started working together, we came up with this. Black-owned, it was a 51% occupancy issue, not an 80 or 90. From that standpoint, and they occupied first floor, and there's 4 floors in the building, so they were only going to occupy about 25. Gave them opportunities to do that. That's fine. But yes, we would like to find a solution to keep ourselves whole if we could. I really like what CIP has done, and CIP touches a lot of individuals and a lot of companies and a lot of communities. And the Office of Small Business, that's what's touching a lot of folks. Commissioner, we've gone out and talked to a lot of folks, and I'm the point person for that program with the 504 assistance. So we've done 4. They've all been $50,000 contributions. That's gotten us to 200. So another thing I want to make sure that, I think, Jeff, we started with 500,000, and I think we did 200, and then they kept some dollars, and we gave some money back last year. We have about $150,000 left in that program. We will have the fourth program, the fourth loan will be funded here very shortly. So we've already allocated those dollars, but we'd like to find some sort of balance. I'd love to keep the 504 assistance program if we could, but I'm going to go out and say I think the CIP and the Office of Small Business are touching more and doing more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's one or the other, because the Office of Small Business is one of my initiatives. But what I would say to even my colleagues here, because each of us have different initiatives, I don't think they would want to find out about cutting their own initiatives. Women and girls wouldn't want to be cut, and you ain't talked to Commissioner Driehaus or even brought it up. You know what I'm saying? This is all brand new to me. It never was. I'll just use an example. I would be upset about it if I were you or anyone. I'm just saying, I didn't know anything. This is my first time hearing about it. And it was a hard thing to pull off because of the prosecutor's office, and we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that, and I mean, we had money allocated, but we just could never do it because we couldn't get the approvals. And so this is my first time hearing that. Hey, this is my first time hearing it, and that's just not. I don't think that's a good thing. But I'll take a look at it and think about it. But I'm just saying, it took us. I'm just saying it wasn't 504 all the time. It was designed to help people own small businesses, move into ownership.
Correct.
We came up with 504 after exhausting legally what we could and couldn't do. And so that's how we ended up partnering with 504. It wasn't 504 coming to us saying, hey, this is the idea we can do. This was something we tried to move toward that. And we didn't do as much. I mean, the Office of Small Business, I support that. I mean, I have no problem. I've supported everything. Your economic development, being our economic development arm, I've supported that. But this is news to me, and I've got some more questions. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you all for being in here.
I have a comment. Yeah. So I appreciate that you guys and ladies got together as far as you were concerned, what would be the possible solutions for your company, and I respect that. And I was just wondering about maybe a possible moratorium for the 504 down payment assistance, and maybe do it next year or something. You said there's been 4 people, 4 buildings, and that's why I continue to say deferral is not denial. And maybe we'll come in with even more money that'll come into the general budget. We don't know, but that you might just want to put it on hold. That would also allow you guys to have the increase. The 3% is not a lot, and I certainly respect and appreciate you guys saying you're not asking for it, but you work so hard. And I know that won't make a difference if you're going to work any harder. But if we, so my suggestion would be maybe to do a moratorium on this program, since you picked this program out yourselves as the one you might not want to do as much for. So that's all I wanted to say.
I would just point out that even if we took the $79,000 out of that fund, we could possibly still do one and maybe 2 businesses, depending on the cost of the project. So.
Very good.
Yeah, that's
still get your rate.
Yeah, I was going to point that out. That what's being suggested is leaving some money in the fund to do work next year, but using some of it to fill a gap somewhere else.
Yeah.
So, but I appreciate what's being said. We support all of these things all of the time.
Yeah.
It's all really important, but as we've heard from others, it's just a matter of priorities, and we're trying to sort through this challenging budget. So, but your efforts here are appreciated. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
All right, commissioners, no more budget presentations. So that's the good news. The bad news is we've got a budget hearing tonight. So we're doing all budget, all day and all night. So, and just as a reminder to folks, we have a budget hearing at 6 o'clock this evening at the Board of Elections. That is for departments or the general public to come in and weigh in related to the budget. And so we welcome people into that conversation. Sure, we will have plenty of interest in that as well. All right, so we've got a couple of other items here. And these are rollovers from the legislative meeting where they didn't get dealt with. So Jeff, I'm going to have you run us through items 5 through 8.
Happy to do that, Commissioners. I think these were all on the consent agenda. Would you like me just to go through it as if I were presenting the consent agenda, and then you can ask questions?
I think that's fine.
Okay.
We'll ask questions if we need to. How about that?
Commissioners, item number 5 is a resolution authorizing an amendment to a lease agreement between the board and the Southwest Ohio Regional Workforce Board for property at 1916 Central Parkway. This is a 6-month lease renewal while the Workforce Board investigates opportunity for new space. Item number 6 is a resolution accepting purchase orders for Hamilton County facilities and authorizing their execution and release. This is in the amount of $308,983. This is for software, hardware, and telecommunications installation at the Central Campus Building. Item number 7 is a resolution authorizing the award of RFP 074-25 and execution of an agreement with Ace Parking, LLC, and the Board of County Commissioners. This is for parking management services through Stadia and Parking for the riverfront parking facilities as well as our West End and Findlay Market parking facilities. Item number 8 is a resolution accepting one purchase order for the county through county facilities and authorizing its execution and release. This is in the amount of $454,000 for network equipment at the Central Campus Building. And I was getting ready to go into number 9, but that's an executive session, so I will not. And that is your legislative items on this agenda. Commissioners, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Soma Dumas, any questions?
Yes, item 5, Jeff, is you said a 6-month lease, or as they look at other options. Is it normally 1-year lease? Is that what it?
I think our lease has been annual, so this is just, they don't think they're going to need that much time, so it's just 6 months.
Okay, great, thanks.
Commissioner
That's
Reese?
all I had.
Oh, I'm sorry. Any questions?
I do have one question. So the Central Campus, that's the Bond Hill site?
Yes, I'm sorry, that is the Bond Hill facility. Correct.
Okay. And what's our timetable on that again?
We are going to be JFS will be moving, I'd say boxes are probably starting to go. They'll be moving in early January.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, very good. I'm going to make a motion that we approve of items 5 through 8.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we have 2 executive sessions today. So I'm going to make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to ORC Section 121.22G2 to discuss the sale or acquisition of property, and an executive session pursuant to ORC Section 121.22G4 to discuss collective bargaining.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Commissioner Reese?
Yes.
Thank you.